Good morning. I see holiday cups of Joe.
This is my favorite cup because it's so big. This is a year-round cup. Starbucks, they make great mugs. Well, they don't. They hire people to make great mugs for them.
Yeah, it's a great place to start because what I want to talk about today is Thanksgiving because I'm betting based on where we are in this roster that this is the thing that's going to air just before the Thursday for
Ah,
Thanksgiving.
all right. I love it.
So I'm trying my best to warp time in our favor.
I like it.
And that's my
Nice
cue.
producing. Hey, speaking of producing, the effects only happened that one episode.
Yeah. I'm out of batteries.
Ah! We'll have to call HR and get some more batteries for you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I might go get some today.
All right.
Yeah, it depends on whether that new client pays his bill or not.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Well, don't congratulate me, yet.
Hey, it's a new client.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see. He said he was a new client.
Then again,
I'm anticipating that he's ready to receive what I have to offer him.
awesome.
And if he's not, that's cool too. Like, more power to him.
Amen. All right,
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'm grateful for my life right now. Wow.
The holiday when the colonies of Whitey gave food to the Native Americans and thanks for their kindred neighborly ways and taught them the good ways of Jesus Christ, superstar. I love that holiday.
I was just reading about it. And of course, I set myself up with a link to follow and to read about it. And now I'm like searching.
Well, isn't it funny that we're recording this on Indigenous People Day?
Well, that was the other
Formerly
reason
known
I
as
thought it'd be super cool to,
Columbus Day.
right? What'd you say?
Columbus Day.
Oh,
Hey, do you know how long Columbus Day, formerly Columbus Day, however, do you know like when it came into existence?
no. Are you going to tell me?
1972, President Richard Nixon declared the second Monday of October to be Columbus Day.
Wow, that's trippy.
I know it's not that long, like it wasn't really celebrated that
No.
long. And it's not celebrated anymore. Hallelujah.
Well, it depends on who you ask. Like, there's still a lot of people who wish to celebrate that.
There's a lot of people who are fuck nuts. We don't need to give them any serious consideration.
Yeah, I'm from Italian. Half my heritage is Italian, so it's an interesting juxtaposition for me because I'm super clear on what colonization meant, and I mean I was
Well, not just colonization on the whole. He personally, from his diaries that I've read, was a fucker.
well, yeah, he was
Like
awful,
he wrote down, I am a fucker.
right? Literally,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and that's why when you say his name, like I made a post today on social media where I said that Italian. Like that's how heavily I'm trying to like decolonize my own mind and my own discussions of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I did on that social media post was talk about how many diseases came across from Europe and what that did to the indigenous populations, like specifically in Colombia and the central part of the Caribbean where Columbus landed, which was nowhere near what we call the United States today. That's the other part of it. It's like he discovered America. No, he discovered some island in the Caribbean.
He did end up, as I understand it, he actually did make it to North American continent at some, like the third trip or something.
Yeah. So one of the things I talked about in my social media post today was that what the research was around why the diseases killed so many indigenous people. And people talk about communicable diseases like viruses. And that was my point today, was because a lot of people are making the point about COVID that it's, that the whole idea of germ theory has some holes in it from science, and that it's probably 5G or electricity or pollution or whatever. And particularly
Holy,
one person in my family history who um, really riles me up with his fierce myopic dedication to the idea that there can't be viruses. Um, anyway, so what I found when I was researching it, which I didn't know, was the vermin that came over, the rats that came over on the ship,
yeah.
actually messed up the water with weird amoebas and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And so it wasn't just measles and chicken pox and smallpox and all of that horrible polio and all of those things that came over, but it was also the rats came over, and they had all kinds of awful stuff that polluted the water and created flea-borne disease and all these other things.
Hmm. So they polluted waterways like streams,
Yeah. Yeah,
rivers.
because yeah. And because tea was a big part of European culture. The reason for that is when you want to drink water, you probably should boil it first, right? Like, so let's boil it. Since we're going to drink boiling water, let's do something with it, right?
Let's
So,
throw some dirt in there.
some, well, and medicinals, right? Like, if we're going to drink, let's add some value to it, like some
All
nutrients to it too, which is great. I mean, and the double irony of the irony is that the goddess religions, which were succumbed to the Roman impulse, um, a lot of healing teas and natural remedies came from all the witches they burned. And so
but their
the whole,
ashes were like
no,
medicinal.
no, 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 from the knowledge that they curated over time, not from their ashes. Although that might make an interesting cake decoration. Maybe the batteries are working.
Nope. Tech. We need tech.
Where's the producer? Fire him. Wait, getting
I'm
hired
the
again.
producer. Art is our producer.
Yeah, that reminds me of a whole series of really bad jokes.
It's beautiful. Is that a segue?
No,
We're
I'm not
not
going to tell
done
them.
with disease in Whitey. The Great White Plague.
So we're coming up on this year, on November 25th, the 400th anniversary of the first Thanksgiving holiday. It says here that on November 25th in 1622 to 1621, the Plymouth colonists and the Wampanoag Native Americans shared an autumn harvest feast that is not acknowledged today by historians as one of the first Thanksgiving celebrations. This is according to history.com. And for more than 2 centuries, it were celebrated by individual colonies and states, but it wasn't until 1863 that President Abraham Lincoln proclaimed Thanksgiving a national holiday. And it goes on to explain that the first winter was brutal, right? And we all know this. One of the things that happened was they were met by an Abenaki Native American who greeted them in English, named Squanto. And he had been kidnapped by an English sea captain and sold into slavery before escaping to London and returning to his homeland to and that's where he met up with the pilgrims. So it's weird, but that's the pilgrims met an indigenous person who spoke English. Right. So not only did he speak English, they were welcomed with the English, and then they taught him how to cultivate corn and extract sap from the maple trees, catch fish, and avoid the poisonous plants. He also helped them forge an alliance with the Wampanoag local tribe, and that alliance lasted 50 years, which it says here in history.com was one of the only examples of harmony between European colonists and Native Americans. Never mind that half of the Mayflower people died, and then lots and lots of the indigenous people who came in contact with them died of diseases after that. So, but the first feast, this thing that happened on November 25th, 1621, was 3 days long, according to this. And there's a journal entry, but it's not clear what they ate. The next year, however, it didn't rain. So there wasn't another celebration until 1623. So that's the brief sort of historical perspective. For me, of course, raised in middle America as a white boy, it's always been turkey and football, right? And family.
Yep. And parades.
And parades. And I kind of like 2 out of 3 on those. Turkey and parades.
You weren't a football player?
I was a football fan then, but I've since fallen out of love with the NFL.
NFL tastes good when it should.
Yeah. What does Thanksgiving mean to you, Greg?
Family, predominantly. And putting aside one's differences to gather together and enjoy a feast.
Now, in the different circles that I've been in over the years, having been married and various girlfriends and things, one of the things I notice is that the variations on Thanksgiving have kind of a range, but that some traditions are more practiced than others, right? Like everybody thinks about turkey and stuffing, but some people it's like sweet potatoes as opposed to mashed potatoes, right? Or like pretty much everyone talks about pumpkin pie, right? Or apple pie, right?
Cherry pie.
Right? Strawberry rhubarb pie, pecan
pie. Pie is a key element of Thanksgiving.
Right?
Well, that's interesting. Gluttony is often joked about as a predominant element of Thanksgiving. You just feast until you're overstuffed, and then you pass out in front of the TV.
Mm-hmm. Well, feasting in general, when harvest comes in, is part of what helped us survive through the winter when before we had the kind of lifestyle we have now.
Was it? I think storing goods through winter.
Well, that too, but putting on, just like a bear, putting on a winter coat of extra fat helps you have a little bit more to burn. So, but that, clearly what modern Thanksgiving is since, the end of World War II.
You know what Thanksgiving means to me?
No, tell me.
The day before Black Friday.
Oof. I've never shopped on Black Friday, thank God.
Oh man, I did it a couple of years. Actually, I got a killer laptop for really inexpensive and went out at like 4 a.m. It was a lot of fun. There's a lot of that, if you're an individual who likes the rambunctious energy of crowds and sort of upbeat energy, that's pretty much what a Black Friday, although I think the last time I went out, it wasn't the same because everything's done online. So it didn't have that 4 a.m. deal energy anymore.
Right. Like lining up for Star Wars or whatever.
Right.
It's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
It's not a social event now that it's become what is it, Online Monday or Digital Monday or whatever.
Well, there's Digital Monday, but even the Black Friday deals, they're all online. So
no. Well, this year's going to be different because apparently if we wait till Black Friday, there won't be anything to buy on Black Friday.
Yeah, I'm giving my family jars of mayonnaise.
That you've already bought from Costco, right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you going to Cracked them open and put like special stuff in them.
No, I'm just giving them a case that I paint green and red. Here's a case of
Why
mayonnaise.
not like strawberry jam? Like why mayonnaise?
Pump up the jam, pump it up. Your body pumping.
Welcome to the musical segment of Moped Outlaws, the inevitable portion of the show.
I know. Do you think we will ever do an episode where music isn't a factor?
Yes.
All right. I'm waiting for that episode. Maybe this is it. Maybe that just like
Well, we've already blown that one because you just sang. So
pump up the jams. Um, that's just because there's a TikTok where this girl holds up this jar of strawberry jam. She puts a bike pump in it. She starts pumping it, and the song hits right perfectly. Boom, pump the jam. I didn't do that. It just was just funny enough, just funny enough.
yeah.
All right. So is there more to
TikTok
the
takes a lot of shit, but I love it. Like it's my favorite social media right now.
TikTok?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. They've got the what is it called? Allogram. The
Algorithm.
algorithm. They got the graham cracker program. It's so like, oh, I'll just check it out for a minute. An hour later.
Yeah.
It's phew,
Yeah.
too easy. Too easy.
Yeah. And hey, congratulations on surpassing 500 with zero time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And we should also just mention today was really significant for me because there's another podcast called Live with Greg, which also had a milestone, which is the original person who appeared on the first episode of that appeared in episode 71. And that was an extremely hard to watch, and also really I didn't find it hard to watch. It was like a juxtaposition because I really miss Chris Ferb and what he has to say. And there he was. I watched it, right? I didn't just listen to it, and so it was a bit maudlin. But his life is full of challenge and maudlin stuff. So it motivated me. Like you asked him all these questions about services and how if he's getting help finding stuff, and I was like, I wanted to step into the breach there, and so huzzah to you for that because it was very inspiring, and I hope lots of other people are inspired by it and reach out to him. And has his situation changed as far as finding a place to live yet since you recorded the podcast?
He's going to Sacramento to look at a rental property today. I think he and Charlene. And there's a gentleman that I contacted last week whose specialty is living situations for people with disabilities. And he's willing to talk with Chris. So there was actually a meeting scheduled this afternoon, but then this rental property popped up, so Chris postponed it.
Awesome.
There are things happening, yeah. I think one of the predominant challenges for Chris is what do you call it? Despair. What's
Depression.
Depression, right? Which I think was an element of his life before HD really kicked in, but HD has exasperated it, which is pretty normal for people.
Yeah.
Even just from a normal perspective, pulling the biology out of it of how the neural pathways are deteriorating and the nervous system's deteriorating. I imagine if I had a disease that was uncurable and was just slowly ticking down to this chaotic mess of a death over an extended period of time, that's a thought that you wake up with every day with that. That's pretty hard to be happy, like, yay, life.
You can't mindset yourself out of that one, can you?
Right. Now, a footnote to that is one of our dear friends, Dr. Michelle Veneziano.
Mm-hmm.
She shared with me that one of her patients has HD. And when they first started, this woman, like her balance was way off, walking was very difficult. After working with Michelle for a year, she's paddleboarding. And doing things. And part of what I think was a piece to her ability to do that with the support of Michelle was her mindset.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and everyone has a different level of their ability to
Right.
invoke, intellect and, you know, but yeah, I mean, we've all benefited so much from Chris Ferb in our life.
Do you believe in numerology at all?
Well, I believe that people believe in it, and therefore I believe in that, and I'm willing to consider the possibilities as
I have
something
to kill you
I'll
now.
look into.
Um, Today,
I
Moped
qualified my
Outlaws,
qualification on that one just for those.
Moped Outlaws today was episode 17, and Live with Greg, episode 71.
71.
Exactly. That means absolutely nothing. That just reminded me of Willy Wonka. You get nothing. Remember the very end? The first one, the real one.
No, I don't remember.
Oh, really? With Gene Wilder?
Nope.
Oh man, we're at
What
the
happens?
end. So
Well, I
at the
know
very,
what
very end,
happens, but there's something you're thinking.
well, Charlie at the very end, he's the last child standing. And, um, so he and Grandpa are there in Willy Wonka's office, and Grandpa's like, kind of like, well, what about all the stuff you promised? Like, what's going on? And Willy Wonka just blows up, like super angry. And you look at this huge long contract, and he's all like, "You get nothing." And fucking Grandpa's like, "What the fuck?" And because when they drank that stuff and went up, like floated up in the fan, and um, they broke a clause in the contract.
Ah,
And then that's when Charlie um, gives back the gobstopper that they thought was Snodgrass wanted to reverse engineer. And then Willy Wonka sees that, and and then he just big old smile on his face, and he turns, he's all, "Charlie, I knew it was you. You did it." And Grandpa and Charlie are like, "Whoa, what the fuck?" And it was like he was playing angry. He wasn't really angry, but
it was a test to see what would happen under stress. It was a stress test.
it was a stress test. Yeah. And Charlie made it through.
Yeah. See, that's a great example. Like, even when shit goes totally sideways, we have some ability to energetically influence the proposition, the outcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Let's tie back to Thanksgiving.
Well, I'm super grateful that Chris is in my life, right? And the
Yeah.
example he sets as a man. I mean, let's just start with his uncompromising vision for Iknak Fu. Like, he was instrumental in, like, kicking out one of the first singers who turned out to be a complete jerk, and was like, I don't want that shit in my band, right? And then continuing to go on to perform in, I don't know, proto punk, hard rock. I don't know where we would, but Iknak Fu, man, great band.
Great band.
And as a result of Chris's interest in music, he takes that and he links it to his desire to make this film. And then he hosts this outdoor concert every year, and all his musical friends, most of whom aren't very successful as bands, get to play these outdoor shows every year to try and help make this movie. And he just, every year, like, a little bit more, a little bit more, he gets it a little bit more edited. So there's this whole, like, 12-year period where here's this guy who is unstoppable in his vision, and he completes this film, Huntington's Dance. We do all these amazing shows at Furb on the Green in these amazing spots to play music. Like, when you look back, it's, despite the way things are going right now and the inevitability of what will be a grim death for him, he he's one of the most successful of all of us in terms of, when you look at his achievements. Like, I have this film I want to make, and I'm not like holding a fundraiser every year to get it done. Like, the guy's a prime example of how to show up in the world. And I put it all at the feet of West Virginia. I think his Middle American roots
That
are kind of,
mining town ethic.
yeah,
Go into the mine regardless, day in,
exactly.
day out. Well, he had a lot of support, like day on the Furb
Herb
on
on
the
the
green.
green.
The Healy's donated a ton of energy for that to happen.
Yeah, no
And
question.
I believe Deborah, one of the producers of Huntington's Dance, poured a lot of energy into the success of that, along with a few other people.
I agree. I'm not saying that Chris did it on his own by any means, but I think being the anchor, the energetic anchor that,
He didn't let go. Huntington's Dance is a brilliant documentary. It's yeah.
yeah. So in that sense, I'm grateful to be inspired by, I mean, let's just be honest. There's this podcast that I watched this morning that's Greg's other podcast, Live with Greg, depending on semantics. And in it, we have Chris Ferb, who is now absolutely symptomatic. And so what that means is he can't sit still. And there's all kinds of movements that are involuntary and he has no control over. And he's still laughing at jokes. He's still like says the vulnerable thing like, uh, I think I just spaced out. Like when he said that, I almost fell out of my chair. So, when with that kind of example of being a human being, I'm grateful for the friendships that I have. That's what Thanksgiving means to me is community.
Yeah, and I was super honored and touched that he was willing to put himself out there publicly again in such a state, like that, be vulnerable, so vulnerable.
Yeah.
And he even shared with me, because I always let everyone, as you well know, because you've been into preview the episode before it goes live, and they have the right to green light or say no. And he greenlit it pretty quickly and said he was kind of shocked to see how advanced his chorea, I think it's called, the involuntary muscle movement, has become. He didn't realize it was so prevalent,
His perception of it, man.
right?
Yeah. I mean, you put him on the spot, dude. Like the whole course of the interview, I'm like, oh, like he's not doing him any favors. Like mentally, like answer all these tough questions that'll really put you at center of what's going on for you. Like, oh, every time you asked another one, I was just like, oh my god, like get this guy some extra Prozac at the end of the interview, please. But you were following the thread, right? Like there was no malice, there was no you weren't trying to exploit it. There's this rich heart that shows up with you. And when you asked him the question about euthanasia, self euthanization, uh, that took a lot of courage for you to ask.
didn't it didn't really,
No, I'm
because here's why, Mark. I think anyone with any empathy and intelligence can see that the wisest choice is to allow someone to say when they're done. And that's just in life in general. And as you and I know, one of our close friends brought that up as like, hey, I think this should be a personal choice. And then they got a bunch of chaos into their life. Um, a friend of mine passed away from medically induced, through the proper channels of California. He ended his life. And it was very peaceful. And I spoke with his wife after, and she spoke to how endearing, what a wonderful moment his passing was, and what a wonderful experience. I don't, it's to me, there's no triggering at all. It's so, it's the ultimate in empathy. Like, you're done. Okay, go in peace.
Yeah. And sitting across from someone who hasn't, who's the clock is ticking,
Yeah.
who's just talked to you about depression, severe physical disability, not having anywhere to live, his girlfriend getting the
His
short end of
wife,
it. And
his
then you
wife.
ask him, "Have you ever thought about suicide?" I'm like, "Fuck, dude."
It wasn't quite like that, but I see your point. The bridge is right across the way. We can go right now.
And I'm getting chills. The man who answered the question showed up with such amazing heart. And, there's a song that comes to mind called True Courage that was written by Michael Healy in honor of Chris Furb. And it's really true. The level of realization, both of Mike's art and his songwriting, he's another potent force in the world of creativity. But in that particular song, because Mike's not one to give too much emotion in the moment. Like he's not a heart, like touchy feely guy per se. He's not closed off, right? But most of that part of him gets expressed in music. And the song True Courage is just an amazing, amazing honoring of Chris's vision and of what we all can aspire to, And so Thieves of Reason on YouTube is where you would go to look at that. If you haven't heard of Mike Healy's work, Thieves of Reason on YouTube. And he's super prolific, and his songwriting is amazing. And yet again, another thing that I celebrate in terms of gratitude and thanksgiving is my relationship with him and the example he sets for dedication to craft. I'm wearing a shirt that says truth. Like Mike bodies his persona. Like there's no shaking the foundations of his approach and his insights to life, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, definitely you may disagree with him, but he's not going to, what you're hearing and what you're experiencing with him is his absolute truth of that moment.
Yeah. And it makes it tough sometimes, but it also makes it trustworthy. Like
Yeah,
where you stand moment to moment.
right, right.
And the fact that those two were in Iknak Fu together, that's a great gift. Like I don't know if there's a SoundCloud for Iknak Fu. I think there's some stuff. I know that in my digital archive, there's a stack of about 4 CDs that are like old rehearsal CDs or something, and God willing, I'll live long enough to get all of my digital archives online. But
That's funny. I have one too, an outtakes CD that I think I got from Furb. And it's one of the things is the Healy's. It was at the time Nigel and Mike were both in Iknakvu, and they were late. And Dave and Ferb are just talking shit about the Healy's. And there's like, that's the track, like, fuck the Healy's. Or it's not that oppressive, but
the
it's
Heelys
all,
are late or something like that. Yeah.
well, yeah. And it's like, and I think there's like a song to it or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was pretty funny. It was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And that's the invitation for everybody, right? Is like we're here and we tend to think of ourselves in these narrow conventions of expression. But more and more we look around and we're like, wow, there's this whole breadth of possibility for us to be expressed. And so I'm grateful for that too. Like I celebrate that.
Yeah, I had an experience yesterday that showed me how if I am so wound up about something where there's no room for air and humor, like humor is breath. And I wasn't taking this conversation seriously that this person was espousing upon. And it pissed them off to the point where I didn't say anything. They just talked themselves into like, well, I'm leaving. Like they put words into my mouth, and this conversation ensued that I wasn't a part of. And it ended with them go, "Well, that's it," you know. And I was like, wow, that was, and I
Wow.
just thought, you know, if there's ever a belief I have that doesn't have the space for humor and brevity, then
You mean levity?
levity. Yeah, brevity too, probably.
Brevity is the better part of levity.
Exactly.
You've heard it here first.
Then, you know, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble with ever mind that I have in that moment.
Yeah, I totally get that. I agree with you. Yeah. So what does Thanksgiving mean to you? What are you thankful for?
I already answered that question.
Okay.
Senator Mark, I've already answered that question.
I just
It's,
have to say, like, I'm loving your mic technique. Like I used to give you crap on this, and you just exemplified the perfect mic technique there. Thank you.
you're welcome. um, you know, Thanksgiving really is a time to just gather together, everyone as family. For me, it's even a time where I would, there are no enemies. Let's just lay that all aside for today. And maybe that'll continue to the next day and we could go shopping together.
You know what I noticed is there's no Thanksgiving carols.
There are when you're in kindergarten.
There are?
Yeah. Didn't you have Thanksgiving songs when you were in kindergarten?
No.
What?
Either that or I don't remember them.
Where were you in kindergarten?
Um, I was at Cheeseman Academy in Denver, Colorado.
Okay. Private school.
Yeah, I guess.
Come on, with a name like Academy, that was a pay to play school right there.
I would have to guess. Like, I have no idea. It was
Cheeseman.
probably because both my parents were super busy.
They're like, let's
Right?
just tuck this boy away for a good 6 hours.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
that
was
was
your
a
mom doing?
handful. I think she was working as a legal secretary while my dad was in law school.
All right.
And one of the there's two things I remember about Cheeseman Academy. One, they had lawns that went for blocks. Like there was this big open lawn with trees, and then there'd be a little street, and there'd be another lawn,
Definitely a
like, and it
private
would just it
school.
went forever. And of course, I was 4 or 5, so of course, if I went there now, I'd be like, it's not so big. But to the memory, your memory of the Lilliputian, amazing. Like, hello, 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 hello. Right. And then the other thing is being told, no, you can't write left handed. You must use your right hand.
Wow. So it was a Catholic private school.
No, no,
Oh,
they weren't Catholic,
uh,
but it was just a thing. Like, it was that period
like
in
the
education in
fascists.
1967.
That's
Yeah, I think it was
crazy.
67,
That's crazy.
68, maybe, where, you will learn to write with your right hand because life will just be better for you. Yeah. Um, Cheeseman Academy. My formative years.
I got to bounce.
Yes, you do.